Hello, Straight Talk audience. This is AI Gonzalo Lira, and this is Straight Talk, Cyber Cafe Edition.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Welcome to another edition of the Report with Professor Red Pill and Adam Maxwell. It's November 26th, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of wonderful, crazy stuff. Uni-Party, Democrats, Republicans, like everybody just like joining on the same side, like doing stuff, and economy going to chaos, and all kinds of stuff. And it's like, it's just a world of crap, and it's like surrounding the planet, and like everybody's taking a bite of this poop sandwich, but Adam, go and take it away.
Thanks for joining the Liberty Report on the 26th of November 2025. We're most of the way through collapse 2025, and well, are you feeling it now? Everywhere I look, west, east, north, south, it's all collapsing at the same time. This is my perception. Every country feels worse. Every system feels heavier. Maybe not everywhere at the same pace, but personally, I mean, I'd like to be optimistic by nature, and I'm just not seeing it. For decades, people have relied on many escape routes. Move city, move across the country, have another passport, have another plan ready. And now looking around, looking at all the everywhere, it seems that these solutions pretty much gone. We saw very heavily 10 years ago this nomad capitalist fantasy. You can just swap passports, change continents, chase opportunity. But the decay is being synchronized all over. Right? Surveillance is global. The debt, global. Demographic pressure. Every country, it seems, is caving into these political ideologies. It seems that everywhere you go, you're dealing with the same system, just with a different accent or a different language. And I think everyone feels it. I mean, some people maybe pretend it's fine. Some people maybe are even thriving. And if you're thriving, good. I'm very happy for you. But I think most people, I think, are struggling. Prices are up, stability is down, culture's collapsing, families are becoming harder and harder and harder to build. And yet somehow we're told this is progress. So today, we're going to be breaking it down why escape is no longer so viable. That every country seems to be deteriorating simultaneously, and why, maybe for the first time in living memory, perhaps there is nowhere left to run.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that opening statement, Mr. Mad Maxwell. The situation is that we're seeing history repeating itself from the 1920s, when the Roaring Twenties with the boom and bust cycles, and we're at the cusp of hashtag collapse 2025, i.e., the next great depression of 25. And I've been predicting this. I even talked about what we're talking about now, that there was going to be nowhere to run, that you're going to see the economic turmoil reach global proportions. If we go back to 2008, it was mostly regional. It was predominantly Europe and America. I actually left and went to Asia to take work at the time, because there was no work in the US or Europe. And eventually went to the Middle East. There was still work. The salaries were still good. The economy was still stable. Oil prices were still up as a result of it. They weren't really affected that much. The Asian market was not really affected that much. But when I went to Europe to take a certification course for teaching, it was bad. People were like, yeah, dude, the economy's bad here. It's getting worse and worse. And I was like, all right. So like, basically just went back to the Middle East, and that's where I am now. So, I mean, the situation is that basically we are looking at We are in the collapse hashtag 2025. There is nowhere to run. We are in a really bad situation. It's getting worse. I called it. I gave you the timeline. I said it would start November, December. We're already seeing it happen. Gold prices, I said, we go to 4,000. Silver prices, we go to $50 an ounce. And obviously, oil would never reach above $70 a barrel. Where are we at now? I said this a year ago. You remember I said it. I said it here on the podcast. Exactly what I said would happen is happening. And that Russian economy is not doing well. The sanctions are destroying them. And they're not only destroying Russia, but they're destroying Europe even worse, the Eurozone. I mean, Europe is taking... The sanctions are affecting Europe's economy more than Russia's economy, but still Russia's economy is still being affected by these sanctions and the ongoing war in Ukraine. And like I said, I've been saying, it's a banker's war, and it's just money laundering operation, and that's all I see it as. Military industrial complex, and the boomers just making money and money and money and money and continuing it from there. What do you want to add to that, Adam? Anything?
History is repeating itself, but also it's not, because of this progressive element of technology and the technological system. 100 years ago, you never had so much surveillance. 100 years ago, you never had so little freedom because of the technological system. So although the patterns are repeating themselves, I do think there is a linearity to the history, to reality, to however, to human civilization and whatnot, because of the advance of technology. And this is really going to be the big thing, where you have the CEO of Palantir boast about how everyone's going to have to be on their best behavior because they're able to monitor everything. How you're going to accept this technological subjugation, whether or not you want to. And you will want to, because we believe it's best. And so who the heck are you to tell me, like, this is a new form of both feudalism and slavery. It's a modern slavery, a neo-techno-feudalism. When you speak to most people about the past, they say, oh, it was so terrible. We were exploited by feudalism. We weren't free. We didn't have freedoms. But today you're now being enslaved not to a lord, where you have some form of kind of social, localized communal pressure where you're able to push back, that you're being enslaved to a system, to a bureaucratic, administrative, neo-technological bureaucratic system where you really have no power, no freedom, no capacity to influence it back. And feudalism, you had to pay your tithe. You work however much you work. You give away the wheat that you produce, for example. You work for the Lord to some extent, and they feed you and they clothe you and you're provided for. Nowadays, you're being taxed a greater percentage, both in direct and indirect taxes and inflation. Everything's becoming less and less affordable. It's becoming far more difficult to exist today than it was in the past. And yeah, okay, your salary may be nominally higher, but if every other facet of reality is breaking down around you, are you really better off? There is a good reason to believe that primitive man, or even feudal man, suffered from less stress and frustration and was better satisfied with his way of life than modern man is. And not just modern man, but we're looking at the future, and we're looking at this technological slavery. And it seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. And that problem of things getting worse is not because of the free market. It's not because of even capitalism. It's because of government extraction, financial enslavement, this economic compression, social, cultural decline, demographic pressure. All of these are leading to a collapse of family formation, ecological, physical decay, mental, ideological breakdown, this two-tier reality. And again, this crisis is not localized. It's not here, there. It's everywhere. So if you want to escape it, can you move around your country? No, it's probably all over. Can you move to the next country? Well, do they speak the same language? It's quite a barrier. And okay, you've overcome that language barrier. Good for you. I'm very pleased. Are they experiencing the same kind of system, the same pressures? Maybe it's 10 years behind, and that's a good thing. When it comes, one of the benefits of communism in Eastern Europe is that it preserved some of the traditional values and virtues and social cohesion, such that A lot of people in Western Europe are saying, actually, I think Eastern Europe may be a better trade-off for me at this. Yeah, it's maybe poorer, but the food quality is better. The people are happier. There's a greater love and respect for nature. Like, these things really matter, and these things are wealth and value. It seems to be dearly missing, and not just missing, but progressively going away in the West. These values being taken away from you, stripped by these coercive mechanisms of government extraction.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, we're both in Eastern Europe right now, so you're in EU and I'm in an EU, basically a country that's in the process of becoming an EU country. And what you just said is pretty much hits the nail head, hits the head, I guess the nail, the head, with a hammer. But more or less, like, yeah, people are more traditional here in Eastern Europe. They are more in touch with nature. They're very very simple people, and they have a sense of like understanding their situation. They're also economically challenged in a lot of ways, but more or less like they still go to work. They still put in their time and progression to help develop these economies. And one of the things that I noticed though with the little the bottle that you have, that little cap thing, you got your bottle there. Isn't that awesome? They have like a little cap there that keeps it. Isn't that thing annoying? That's only in Europe, by the way.
If it's annoying, you just rip it off. It's not hard.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know. People complain that it's terrible EU regulation. It took no effort for me to rip it off, and I guess I don't lose the cap. I'm not in favor of it. I'm not against it. Whatever. It's very minor.
Yeah, that's an environmental thing though. Like that's for nature. Yeah. But we got a question here, a comment from Billy Watts. He's saying that, but if everything would be affordable, who would need the government anymore? They don't need the government. Government's just in the way. It's in the way of
government is adding misery to the strife. Right? Life is hard. Everyone has problems. Everyone has problems 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago, 20 years in the future. Everyone has problems. It is my thesis that the cause of most of these problems are from the government. And we talk every week about how it's not to say there isn't personal problems and reality that comes and hits you, and things that you just can't deal with, or things that you can't resolve just by yourself, things that government maybe not be able to influence, or maybe they can. But certainly I think the root cause of a lot of this is the government, is that they sit at the top of the hierarchy of this artificial hierarchy of society, and they don't look at it as society, as a country, as a nation, as a people. They look at it just as a market. And as a market, they're the government. They have the ruling interest over it. And their ruling interest, particularly with democratic republicanism, is they want to exploit the market society as much as possible, to extract out as much as they can, to benefit themselves in the short run, as quick as possible, as soon as possible. Damned be the future consequences, because it's not a country, it's just a market. Or market society. So they want to get as much as they can while they can, because they're in power for however little long they're in power for. They don't have long-term incentives. They're not interested like you maybe in the future of your country. What they're interested in is, how do I make the most money for me now and in the next few years over this? And this is how this extraction plunder all works. And it's houses 50, 60 years ago, you could afford a house. It might be 4 or 5 times your income. It's expensive, but you got to work hard for it. It's not like houses are growing on trees, but you could afford a house. You could afford, and on a school teacher's salary. Today, in many parts of the Western world, especially where they have this financial, monetary, it's where it is. I mean, even here, even where you are, Professor, house prices, they're not low, they're not cheap, they're not that affordable. No. Maybe they're not going up as much as they are in, say, America, but this is their inflation system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're going up rapidly. Like they're unattainable. Like Avatar, the unattainable, unobtainium or whatever they were digging for. Yeah, and the thing is that it's not only the fact that they're unattainable, it's the fact that they're poorly put together. They're slapping them together, like we saw in '07 before the '08 crash, where they were just building slave towers and building just to build, and they weren't. It wasn't like they were building single family homes. You're seeing that more in Eastern Europe and other parts of the developing economies or the developing world, but in the United States, they're building these McMansions and like boomer mansions and like multifamily homes that are, or not multifamily but single family homes, and these like plots, and they're asking for like absorbance amount of money, and they're building them mostly in around metro areas and suburban areas. And pretty much like the millennials and the Ys, the Y generation, even the Z generation that is now entering the workforce, they don't have a need for suburban homes. They have to move to the cities where the jobs are, and or they have to move where the manufacturing is. And the manufacturing is usually in more industrialized areas where there's a limited amount of housing. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's not rocket science. In Europe, Middle East, and Asia, they're building them in metro areas. So they're not building homes or any type of multi-family homes in like rural areas where there's farming and development still. There's still potential for growth. They're building these slave towers for profit, for investment purposes. And they're claiming like an ROI of like 7%, 10%, 15%. It's like, how are you going to get that ROI with inflation? So inflation, we know inflation, I don't know what it is in your country. I know here it's like 1% to 2%. In America, it's obviously around 2% to 3% officially. But you have an ROI of 7%. Yeah, you have an ROI of 7%. You can put money into the bank account and get between 4 to 10, depending on country and like currency. I think putting your money in the bank would be a better ROI than buying a house at this point. Not only that, but gold and silver, crypto. The crypto alone has a 7.7% ROI year to year so far. Gold and silver, I think the ROI is a little bit higher, if not about the same. So I mean, you would get more benefit from putting money in gold, silver, and crypto, or just leaving it in the bank in cashbacks and cash, just waiting for the economy to basically nosedive, and then buying up things on the cheap. You can buy that same house if you wait long enough. You could probably buy that same house for half the price when the market crashes. That's what I've been saying. Not financial advice, but I mean, that's what I'm predicting, is that we're going to see a market crash, a 70% correction. We're going to see Weimar Republic style collapse. That's what I'm seeing.
When you talk about multi-family homes, you're talking about a big house
Slave
where
towers.
you can fit. You're talking about slave
towers.
apartment buildings.
Yeah. Multifamily. They're building multifamily predominantly in developing economies, and they're building single family homes in Western economies. London, America, the English speaking Western countries, because that's these are homes, actually single family homes. So these are basically the most profitable. So like in the Western economies, the most profitable real estate is the single family homes. They sell for a higher percentage. These are the ones where you see the McMansions going for $1 million plus, where you look at, they even had a website during '08, right around the collapse. In like Canada, I guess in Vancouver, it was like crack house or $1 million home. And people were clicking on it. It was a running meme website. And like people were clicking on it. Oh no, it's a crack house. They know it's $1 million home in Toronto or in Vancouver or in like San Francisco. And it was just, it was insane how high the prices went. And it's the same thing now. You could basically, like, you could run the same website and say it's a crack house or $1 million home, and people would not know the difference.
So
that's how inflated it is.
Is it what we call in the UK is a semi-detached house, where it's
correct,
instead of it being a detached house?
In the UK, you guys are used to those row house type things like you see in Philadelphia, New York, because obviously London is where they're building most of the real estate, or like bigger cities. I mean, you have multiple cities there. So you have London, you have Birmingham, and a couple other cities that maybe Westerners aren't familiar with. But yeah, they build these like condo type, townhome type things, right? In UK, mostly smaller. They're single family homes, but they're smaller houses basically.
You have detached houses where it's a self-contained house on your own plot of land. It's nice, but I think most houses, or at least I'm from London, where I'm like everywhere I've lived in cities, they're semi-detached, meaning it's its own house. You got a front door,
Mhm.
you got walls, you got a fence, but it's attached.
You're sharing it with other people. Yeah. Those are
There's another
townhomes in
house next
America.
to it.
Yeah. Oh, you're cutting out with the internet. It's all good. Yeah, those are basically townhomes in America. That's what we refer to those as. Where they're like single family homes. They're usually high rise, like 2 or 3 floors, but they're connected to other houses on a block. And you just basically have a backyard and a front yard. And I think that's the same in the UK. You do see them in Europe because we don't have a lot of land here, obviously, for real estate. So this is very popular amongst wealthier people in the UK and Europe, but most people live in slave towers. They live in these like basically like flat. I have a background, but you can see my flat is basically it's a single person's flat. It's just a 1 bedroom. It's very small actually, but the cost is not that expensive to rent compared to the United States or the UK. So I'm getting quite a deal with my salary range and what I'm paying for cost of living. Yeah, but I mean, getting back to the point here, Billy Watts brings up a good kind of a joke of a comment. I'll bring it up and we can talk about it. Who would build camps without the government, basically? So he's referring to work camps, and I often when I brought Terrence Popp on, I asked him a simple question. I said, "What happens when the economy tanks? People are disillusioned. People are destitute. The currency is flatlined, and the economy is collapsing." He's like, I was like, "What usually happens as a result?" He's like, "Well, you get an Austrian painter, basically." And this is what we saw in the Weimar Republic. We saw this in the Soviet Union, post World War One and World War Two, and this is all happening around the same time. You had these revolutions throughout the world. So Mussolini came to power, Austrian painter came to power, Lenin, Stalin, the Bolsheviks came to power, and of course FDR, who some have referred to as basically a socialist democrat, came to power. And the thing is with and Churchill as well, who was kind of a fascist, really closet fascist. So these radical leaders came to power as a result of like the economic disparities after World War One, and basically the bankers' war. World War One was basically a bankers' war funded by J.P. Morgan. Of course, this podcast is not sponsored by J.P. Morgan, but might as well be. But yeah, I mean, basically, that's what we're seeing now, and that's why we're seeing these grassroots movements. We're seeing Trump, the melees. We're seeing the push for Zelensky and Putin and all of these, and Xi Jinping and all of these different party leaders. I'm not saying some are authoritarian, some are not, but the reality is that it's just more of the same. And the thing is, what I'm predicting after collapse 2025, between now and 2030, is we're going to see a continuation of this, and we're going to see a maximum amount of push towards revolutionary change across the world as the economy continues to tank as a result of collapse 2025. And we're going to start seeing some more radical, extreme leaders coming out of the shadows, like I had talked about 2 or 3 years ago in this prediction. And we will see them. They're going to be coming out very soon. You will start to see a lot of these people, and we have already, where basically right-leaning leaders in like Europe, for instance, I believe it's Romania. They did not accept the election results, and they just basically said, no, you can't be. This leadership can't be part of it, and we're seeing it pretty much in Europe right now. And like I said, we covered last week Gadani, who is basically a radical. He's outside. He's an outsider. He's basically, I'm not going to say he's a communist. And he was brought before Trump, and he was like, they were talking about this, and Trump was like, yeah, just be honest. I know you don't like me.
The reporters said, Maldani, do you still believe that Trump is a fascist? And Trump's like, go on, man. Just say yes. It's easier.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's playing to what I was saying, what I was predicting would happen in 2024. When we see this melee, we see like the different outside party people running. But the reality is that these are groomed people. I mean, this is going back to, like I said, I believe my personal hypothesis is that these are groomed. They're not necessarily selected, but they're kind of seen as like, okay, this person is manageable. And we can, if the bankers are like, hey, this person's probably going to win, so let's do the best thing we can to basically fund and try to get them in our corner. And you saw this with the Obama administration. Obama was an outsider, but if you look at his donors, and then you look at like his special interest while he was president, he was heavily funded by the bankers. And they were like, dude, let's get him in our corner. And that's what happened in '08 was the financial collapse. So who bailed out the banks? Obama. So I mean, it's not rocket science. Just like Trump before, when Biden took over of the last election, previous election, Trump, who was Trump mostly funded by? Oh, I think you might be muted, Adam, by the way.
Miriam Adelson and the banks.
Yeah, I mean, there's some bankers there, big pharma. None of the military industrial complex liked them. They liked more Biden, which is why he got more support, which is why the wars kind of ramped up under Biden. But you can pretty much see where the policies are going to go. This is how I'm able to kind of predict like how the market's going and what's going to happen and future events by seeing who the special interests are and who the banks are backing. And generally, like I said, the way markets work, especially as professor of business and I'm not an economics professor, but we do cover some of it. But for the most part, I'm a leadership expert and I teach business studies and leadership. You can tell where the market's going and where the policies are going and future trends are going based off of who's funding what. You follow the money, you make those predictions, and they're usually pretty accurate because most of these banks, most of these like private business enterprises, they're planning 5 to 10 years ahead of time. So they're looking for interest in real estate or interest in projects. They're looking for interest in different types of economic returns on investment, ROI. So they're going to be supporting certain types of governments and trade. And if those governments aren't playing game, they're going to try to take them out either through political campaigns, like Soros tried to do with the all previous campaigns in Europe and America, or they're going to basically try to do a soft coup. If the soft coup doesn't work, there you have your conflict, your war. Welcome Ukraine, war of 2000. Was it 2020 when that started? I mean, that's what happened.
2022 is
2022. I mean, it started in 2013, but like it pretty much escalated in 2022.
Started 2008. Started 1992.
Yeah. So I mean that's just a good example, a good case study of this type of banker war, funded BS basically. They were going back to Gonzalo Lira, rest in peace. He was talking about this as well, about the petrodollar, the dominance of the petrodollar. I believe he talked about who was the leader in there's a woman, I forget, in the State Department, I forget her name. You know who she is. She was giving out
Victoria
cookies during
Nuland?
Victoria Nuland. He really, I think that's the reason why he got nabbed the first time, was because he was exposing her. Yeah.
As well, I mean, her husband is Kagan, who's the head of one or two American think tanks, like the Institute Study of War and another one. If you really want to know how they're coordinating imperial policy, because America's an empire, you study the papers they put out 10, 20 years ago and 5 years ago, and that's how everything's being coordinated.
100%.
This is how they manufacture a consensus, because it's difficult. How do you organize an empire? Well, you do it through think tanks. And these are the governing elites. So follow the money and follow, as Professor
Policy.
said, how are the elites thinking and making decisions? And like the governing elites, the actual people with money and power, how are they thinking about things? What informational sources are they using? A very quick heuristic is follow the money, but you can also follow the officially sanctioned think tanks to see the direction for policies.
Think tanks, government organizations. I mean, when I graduated, towards the end of my graduation, I actually got approached by a think tank to work for them in Washington State, and they asked for a writing sample, and I think my writing was a little too progressive or too radical at the time, and they were like, "Yeah, I don't think this guy's gonna work out." But I digress. The thing is that they're looking for these think tanks hire people out of college that are from top schools, the Ivy Leagues or the top private schools. in the United States, UK, and Europe. And they bring them in to basically write policy, to write, you're basically writing the future of business, economics, governance, everything. This is all being done by academics, by very intelligent people, and you can even say to the alphabet agencies too, to an extent, have somewhat of an influence on that. But predominantly, it's think tanks. The alphabet agencies, like the private agencies like Booz Allen Hamilton, they do some stuff as well with analysis and collecting data, and these data points get funneled into like the think tanks as well as the government. So basically, the way it works is the government does not take a crap in the morning without actually having a game plan. They don't do anything without having any type of game plan and structure. And not only that,
coordinated.
but it's all coordinated. And not only that, but they have to have funding. They can't take a dump unless they have that golden toilet to take a dump in, like Donald Trump, his golden toilet. So when he takes his dump in the morning in his golden toilet, that's the funding. And then the toilet, like his poop that comes out, that's all been planned. And then when they wipe the presidential butt, that's basically in the plan as well. But more or less, like, that's a joke. Sorry.
They don't leave anything to chance. I mean, you look at the civil rights movement. They've boasted about it, called the CRS. I think it's been winding down now. But they've managed the civil rights movement. They've managed every social progressive, Black Lives Matter. All of these are managed. All of these are, as you say, there's assignments. There's a game plan. There's assignment. There's funding. It's all managed. They're leaving nothing to chance. I think there's a great book. I haven't read it, but I've heard good things, called Who Paid the Piper? This is what James Burnham, by the way, his managerialism. He was an alphabet agency guy. He was doing all of this, and he's like, I'm going to write books about this and tell you what it is that I'm doing, tell you about the managerialism. Like the author of James Bond, how do you write such incredible fiction? Well, actually, the author, I forget his name, he was the head of the OSS, the British spy agency. They were living in he retired to the Caribbean islands. He's like, I'm going to just write about what I've been up to in fiction.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it works. Like when I went to Oxford to get my certification, like I said, in Europe this was in 09-10. One of the classmates I had was he was a journalist from Australia. And I was like, yeah, I want to write books on politics, and I was wanting to write about like Diego Garcia and a couple of other things, and he's like, yeah, no one's gonna publish that. Like, you can't get a publisher to publish that. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, anything controversial like that, like any of the stuff that you've written, no one will publish it. But what you need to do is you need to fictionalize it, and then they will publish it. So that way, there's what is it called? Plausible deniability. So it's like, yeah, and this is more or less, unless you're still muted, but it's okay. Yeah, in academia, like I said, if you're in academia, you can write papers and you can talk about this. They're obscure, nobody will read them. But the think tanks, people do actually read those. Government people, government goys, people on Wall Street, bankers, they read these things because this is how they make their money. They see the trends, they see where it's going. And they either get in the funding, they see the ROI or the investment or the potential for growth. And that's what I'm trying to say. Literally, like, this is why I'm able to make the predictions, guys. I work in academia, I worked in banking, I worked in finance, I worked in insurance and PwC, a lot of really big companies. And never worked for the government. I was never a government goy. But I mean, like, I did work private sector, and I learned a lot of stuff. I learned a lot of stuff from different networks and people that I talked to. And working in academia for the last 20 years, off and on, between private sector and academia. And like I said, it's all planned. We do the research, and there's some very smart people in these. I mean, like I said, I go from private sector to academia, private sector back to academia. And it's the same with the government goys. They go from public sector to private sector, public sector. It's all the same. So this is basically how these are done. I mean, I can't explain any other way. This is Wall Street. This is the top people in the industries. This is what they do. This is how they know what's going on. They know how things are done. It's business, bro, at the end of the day. But anyway,
my exclamation was Ian Fleming. That's the author of James Bond. Yeah. This is how the capitalists are making their money. It's not necessary sometimes, but most of the capitalist class, it's this fusion with state. Elon Musk, he's the biggest welfare queen. He's from Africa, by the way. He's the biggest welfare queen in America.
Yeah. He's an African American, yes.
What they do, they align with the state policy, and the state policy is let's just keep the grift going for as long as we can, expand our reach, expand our privilege, expand our power, expand the surveillance. And again, it's an empire. It's an empire, and American empire. I mean, America's invaded Europe. Why is Europe everything? Because it's all entrenched. It's all entangled. And they don't leave it to chance, and it's all terrible.
Just go to the opium wars. I just saw a documentary there with I guess they covered two small hat people that were bankers, that were a banking family that was from, I guess, the Middle East, from Syria, and they went to India, and then they were part of like there was a lot more people that were involved as well, guys, by the way, but they were one of the main families that were involved. I don't want to give you too much on it, copyright infringement, and like literally I don't want to get demonetized or like deplatformed, but more or less you can go find it if you Google it. You can learn about this family and like how much influence they had in Hong Kong, and as well as in the opium trade. But more or less, like, this stuff was planned. The British government was making tons of money from opium trade and tea trade, going from India to China and back and forth, to destroy the Chinese empire. Not necessarily by design, it was about profits mostly. But when the Chinese government was like, hey, man, there's too much opium coming in, this is destroying our communities and stuff, they were like, okay, well, we want the tea, and we don't want to pay money for it. We want to trade for drugs, basically opium. And it's just commodities for commodities. And they were like, no, we're going to go to war. And then what happened, Adam? You remember, you're British.
They went to war, and they initiated what's known as the Century of Humiliation. And they said, all right, give us Hong Kong for 99 years.
Spoils of war, yeah. I mean, they defeated them. They sent the Navy. The British Navy was the most... I mean, you're talking about the British Navy during this period was like the U.S. Air Force, Army, and Navy going into some, like, basically developing crap hole. And just like, it's just like taking a dump in the morning. It's just like, it's like going to Iraq or something like that. It's like, oh, war's already over. There's just the war was over quite as fast as it started. It is what it is. Plus, China was dealing with Japan and imperialism from Japan and other places at the time as well. And there's a lot of stuff going on. This segue into what, World War One, right? Around that time.
Well, this was, I think, mid 19th century, so 60, 70 years before that.
Yeah.
This is the Great Game stuff, Afghanistan, Russia.
Yeah.
So the title of this episode, for me at least, my title, is "The Nowhere Left to Run." And as hinted by Professor earlier, we don't live where we used to, where we were born and grew up. We left. Now, just very briefly, is everything, are all aspects better for you where you have moved to than where you've left?
I would say that my standard of living has declined a bit because, like, obviously I'm in a developing economy, but my status as far as my level of my work, my title, even my salary is pretty much the same or a little bit better. My status is better. Like, I'm a little more respected in here because I'm an expert in the country, one of the experts in the country, by the way. So I'm like a big fish in a small pond. So I get a lot of access to a lot of things I wouldn't have access to in the United States or in Europe, or Western Europe rather.
The point is that as you said, your standards gone down. Some things are good, some things are bad. There's trade-offs. It's not
Right.
Everything's peachy. There's problems.
Right.
I mean, I hear
lower cost of living, basically. I'm living the same standard I
frustrations.
would in America, but at a lower cost of living. I'm able to save more, and I do a lot. My money goes a lot further. That's basically it. That's what I'm saying. But like, obviously I'm in a developing economy, so like I don't have the conveniences that I would have in the United States, especially in the state that I was in, Florida, which is basically one of the most populated states. I think it's the third most populated, but everything's brand new. It's a very, very rich state, very wealthy. And there's a lot of money in Florida. Obviously Trump lives there. What's his name? And Ben Shapiro. All these different wealthy people live in Florida because, there's a lot of money and there's a lot of potential there. But this has caused people like me, who are basically upper middle, to become unattainable. It's unaffordable for me to live in Florida. I can't live there. So if I go back to the States, I would have to go teach at this university in like the Midwest, Michigan, something like that, where it's more affordable, where I can actually live at a standard of living that's comfortable. Versus in Florida, I'm living like basically like a welfare queen, like basically in poverty. As a PhD professor, you know what I mean? It's pretty sad.
So, are things really getting worse? Is scarcity really increasing in the world? To an extent, yes. To an extent, no. Maybe the wealth in Florida is getting more and more, but the access to that wealth, the access to the goods, that is really what's struggling.
Correct.
Especially if you're young, especially if you don't have, if you're not, if you don't have the capital, if you're a young man, a young woman, if you're trying to get yourself into that position, that scarcity really is becoming less and less easy. You talked about, what's the inflation like for me? Well, actually, let's look a step away from the government inflation statistics. The price of food, milk, meat, all of these are going up and up and up. Now, look, my circumstances are not representative of most people. My economic situation is terrible and extraordinary and difficult to improve because of, if anyone knows my law, it's supranational persecution. So I recognize that these things color how I see things and how I analyze things, but also I try my best to be neutral, and I use data when I speak to a lot of people. And it seems that these sentiments are shared by a lot of people. I'm also stuck in this poor corner of the world, of Europe, and what I see is things are getting worse. What I hear is things are mostly getting worse. Like, for some people, as I said at the beginning, if things are going good for you, if they're getting better for you, I'm happy for you. Please, do great, excellent. But what I'm picking up is this is not the general rule. I think that for most people, most things are getting worse. And it's not because of the market nor what voluntarists consider to be capitalism. It's more empirically, it's because we're not governed by a free market, but these capital owning elites. Inside these modern industrial civilizations, the warmongers are in charge. They plunder, they extract, they want to benefit themselves, and they do so at the expense of you. And they exercise these obscene, exorbitant privileges and policies and administrative powers in order to do this. And as a result, within the societies, you have increased surveillance and control, everything I talked earlier, financial enslavement, economic compression. It's fostering social, cultural decline, in part through both immigration pressure, political failure. These are the things that are leading to the global collapse, which are affecting everything, everywhere. It's global, especially when they are waging war against one of the most impactful, powerful countries in the world, which is, of course, Russia, the giant behemoth of the Eurasian island.
Yeah, I mean, more or less, Russia is it's a commodity rich country. It's not densely populated. It's very sparsely populated. Most of the population is in the western part of the country, which is more flatland. It's easier to travel in and out. It's closest to Europe. It's basically the European side of Russia. And much as it could be said the same with China. China is roughly the size of it's bigger than the United States. Russia's obviously bigger than the United States. And the thing is, the difference between China and Russia and the United States is that America is quite densely populated, and there's lots of cities, and people live all over the country. So it's quite populated. It's easy to travel, and it's quite inhabitable. But like with Russia, most of the commodities are in the east part of the country. The agricultural is kind of in the southwest part where the wars are going on right now. And in China, most of the population lives near the coast or near waterways. And that's just basically from Adam Smith, like Wealth of Nations, like waterways is generally where your commerce is and where your economic growth is. And with China, like 2/3 of the just like Russia, like nearly 2/3 is uninhabitable. It's just so, and they have different situation. Like Russia, it's basically frozen tundra and forest, and it's difficult to get in and out of there. It's a large it's a very significant sized country. And with China, it's the same. It's a very significantly sized country. It's just that the population is densely populated near the cities and the coastal areas, just like Russia. It's densely populated towards the European side. So this has a lot to do with the culture, has a lot to do with the commerce and how it's functioning as a society as a whole. And this makes it difficult as well because like in the United States, at least you can go to like Midwest, like I talked about, and it might be cheaper, more affordable if you're educated and you have access to education and skills, like that you can actually make a living wage still. And I don't know how long that's going to last, obviously, for the Midwest, because the Midwest is still affordable at this point. Ohio, the Ohio Basin, the former Rust Belt, Michigan, parts of like the farming areas of like Nebraska, Oklahoma, Kansas. But in Russia, it's just literally like if you don't live in Moscow, like you're in poverty. And China's the same thing. If you don't live in Beijing, Shanghai, or in the southeast, like you're literally in poverty. And this is just what we see around the world outside of Europe. So I mean, this is my analysis. I've been to these countries, I've been to these areas, I've worked and taught in these countries as well. So this is just my analysis, what I see. I don't know if you have a different viewpoint, Adam, but it is what it is. I digress. Go ahead and take over if you want.
I think let's just take a step back from the economics for a second. I mean, we talked about wealth and poverty. If you look at the surrounding conditions in the West, there was just I think it was who's the guy that breaks all the stories, that goes in with I guess a pretty girl, and they go to the government employees and they
This is America, a journalist.
Yeah, that American journalist who they get the employees on a date, and they get some of the most amazing exposés. Anyway,
are you talking about Hidden Boss or whatever it's called? Maybe.
No.
It's okay. Let's go with Tucker Carlson for 500, but I think I'm wrong. Go ahead.
It's not that guy.
Right.
There was recently a leak about Campbell's, the soup company, where they went into the executive and he said, "Yeah, I wouldn't eat that crap. It's made for poor people. It's made with lab-grown meat.
Yeah.
Lab-grown meat. Oh my goodness!" So all the supporting surrounding conditions in the West are progressively deteriorating. Social cohesion, asset prices, which is a consequence of inflation, crime rates up, food quality down, lab-grown meat. Have you ever heard of something so disgusting?
Yeah. I can contest to that. Like obviously being, we're both like basically Ivy League educated, highly educated, and we do have some circles in that regard with like we rub shoulders with some very wealthy elite type people, or we have in the past. These people don't eat goy slop, by the way. Like they do not. They eat organic. A lot of them are vegan or vegetarian. And it's the same like where I'm at here in Tbilisi. A lot of these like wealthier people, educated people, they don't eat goy slop. They don't go to McDonald's or any of these, the name drop McDonald's or like I said, any of these places and eat the goy slop. They eat, like even me, I don't eat that stuff. I eat mostly organic, farm fresh stuff. You do as well, Adam. So I mean, like it is what it is. The goy slop and all this just different Franken food stuff, and literally, like if you're smart about it, you can actually eat cheaper eating organic if you go to the farm fresh, or you have a farm, or you have a way of growing vegetables in your apartment or whatever. But that's a whole nother podcast altogether. But literally, like we don't eat that stuff. It is what it is.
So you can right now, apparently, maybe move out to the Midwest in America. I don't know if you can. Great, leave the cities. Yeah. In Russia, you can get land. There's lots of land. You can get
cheap.
land.
It's very cheap. Yeah.
So you said you live in poverty if you're not in the big city. There's less economic
you have to have
opportunity.
Money.
Yeah, if you move in, you can buy something nice. You can, I mean, you can build a beautiful home. You can have great food. You can. Yeah. The main problem is living out there is the language barrier, as well as the lack of infrastructure amenities. It's difficult. In the Midwest America, maybe you can do that. The price of land is very high, not least because you've got Bill Gates and BlackRock buying up the land, commercializing it. America, it's going bankrupt, and when they go bankrupt, the government, what's going to happen to all the land which they're seeking to monetize and commercialize? Who knows? You've got all these problems in America. you can try and escape and go to the Midwest and Montana and Ohio, and maybe you can get away from the worst of what's to come. But I still think probably it's going to come. Now, there's two ways to think about it. There's a word, cosmopolitanism. And to be cosmopolitan, some people say it with disdain, some people don't. I don't know. A cosmopolitan is a universalist ideology. You kind of you're not feeling
Hunger Games.
away. To be cosmopolitan means like global person, right? You don't feel necessarily tied to a place. A lot of people condemn cosmopolitanism, and they say, "No, look, this is my country. There's nowhere else I want to go. I want to stay here and fight." And again, you move somewhere else, there's a whole host of problems. Maybe it's best to stay and fight. But what you're fighting against is two things. Primarily, it's the government, and it's their government system. It's progressive, and it's surveillance, and it's linear. And I don't see a way to effectively defeat them. But I think you should try. I think you should try your best. This is why I advocate for increasing your capacity for self-sufficiency and agorism. And look, there's trade-offs, right? America may be better opportunity, but you may have less quality food. You may have less social cohesion. You may have more surveillance, less freedoms. You may have more freedoms in some ways. There's always trade-offs.
Correct. I agree.
I think there's a virtue and a valor in saying, in rejecting this cosmopolitan ideology, saying, no, look, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to fight for what's right. Best of luck. It may suck. It may be hard. But anywhere, if you try and go somewhere else, it may suck. It will suck. It will be hard. I don't know if it'll suck. There's troubles and trade-offs, and you can't just quality of life, etc. There's a very popular, there's a meme that I've seen a lot where it's like, I'm from, originally my family are from the countryside in Greece, and they moved to Western Europe or America for a better opportunity and to give the children a better life. And now we're moving back to the countryside in Greece for that same reason. And it's because everything in the West is getting so much worse that actually maybe the best thing to do is to retreat away from these metropolitan shitholes.
Goislop. Yeah. I agree. I mean, like, I went back to Europe. I was like, dude, if things get bad enough in America, and this was like, I said this in 2008, I was like, if it gets bad enough, I'm just going to go to Europe. And that's what I did. Eventually, I made my way to Europe, and then I've been here 15 years off and on. I mean, I got here in 2010 and like 11, and I just basically just stayed in the region off and on, went back to the States, worked for a little bit, came back. But for the most part, I put a stake into the country here in Georgia. And I'm a permanent resident, so I'm like here. I'm a resident for life, so I could get citizenship if I wanted to. But it's one of those things. It's like if I wanted, I could get it. But I mean, as far as like we were talking about at the beginning, like nomad capitalist, like this guy talks about. I guess I think it's Chris Henson or whatever, and he's like trying to grift and say, hey, get these passports, go here, and he's talking about Georgia going there for investment opportunities and stuff. I mean. No, because even if you're an American, you go to like Georgia, you're still going to pay your taxes in America. You're a slave. You know what I mean? You're a slave to that passport. You're paying for that passport. You're leasing that passport. Like you have to pay baby rent for the passport because of the privileges that you come with it. I don't know if it's the same in the UK if they change the tax codes or laws, but recently if you have to pay world income, I don't know if you really give a shit about that anyway, but like in America, I mean, literally you have to, I still gotta do a tax return in America. I still gotta say this is what I make and all this and pay taxes, but it's difficult to relinquish my citizenship in America. I don't know if I would actually do that, but it's a huge hassle and burden. So that's why I just remained as a permanent resident here. But I just, there's no point to go back to the States in the future, in the foreseeable future, 4 years, 5 years, maybe even 10 years. I mean, I kind of built a life here, and like I just don't see the point going back. And the thing is, here is most people speak English in the capital, and so I've been here building this nation up, teaching English, teaching business studies, leadership, law, different stuff that I'm a specialist in, and even doing some consulting. And the country is, I've seen the evolution of the country over time, the progressiveness of it, how how it built up and modernized. And you can see the same thing in Bulgaria and Eastern Europe as well, because they were building the same time as it was here. Yeah, it's just, what's the point? My standard of living is, like I said, there's trade-offs like you said, but my standard of living really isn't that much different. It's a little bit not as great, but at the same time, the cost of living adjustment is substantially to the point. It's substantially better to the point where it's just makes more sense. It's a no-brainer just to stay here for the time being. Plus, I've made roots, and I've made a stake here, so I'm gonna stay. It is what it is for the foreseeable future.
The journalist I was thinking of was James O'Keefe, formerly of Project Veritas, and he set up OMG something. Is Europe great? I don't know, but there's problems everywhere. So it's important. Like, you can try and run, but you have the same problem. It's the same system. We're all part of the one empire. And then if you want to go to a different empire, like the Russian Empire, sorry, the Russian Federation, as a consequence of what's going on by the global American empire, you're seeing problems. China, it's got its own problems. There's problems everywhere.
So that's James O'Keefe, by the way.
Yeah, he's a good journalist.
Continue, I'm sorry.
Trade-offs everywhere. There's nowhere you can go to escape these problems. You can try your best. For me, being from the UK, as one may hear from my accent, I think it was a no-brainer. It's not a choice. You have to leave, because what I found to be the most disgusting is you look around at the society. Even some friends, family, countrymen, strangers. Even you look around, these strangers you believe are one and even those whom are, you believe, one and the same of your nation. You see their attitudes, and you see the way they think about things, and you're like, whoa, how on earth are you able to think this way? It's the extent of the brainwashing and menticide there. There's no way around it. For me, it was a no-brainer. There's no chance I can remain in the UK. Plus, the government said, kill you. For you in Florida, I feel like you said the conditions are just so bad. I have to get out of here. Now, you could have gone to the Midwest.
Cost of living.
You chose to go to Georgia, where you're a permanent resident, the country where you're a permanent resident.
My options were to go to Michigan or the Midwest, or come to Georgia. And I was like, well, I know Georgia. I know, like, I have a stake here. I have work history. I would have to uproot my life and completely change and meet all new people in Michigan. I have friends there, like Terrence Pop's there, several other people, colleagues that I know that are working there and living there, and they would definitely help me get transition there. But at the same time, it's like Tbilisi was just easier for me, and plus the cost of living, and then I was able to obtain a good salary job and position, like a permanent position. I have tenure or developing. I guess it's long-term contract. It's like 4 years, and it's renewable for indefinitely, depending on how, it is what it is, my work and research and things of that nature. So basically they pretty much said, I'm here, I can stay as long as I want. So I have job security, so I'd rather just stay here. It was a no-brainer, basically.
So my conclusion is there nowhere left to run? Maybe. There is a trade-off. Do you want, like many people say, well, in Europe you have better food quality, better life balance. In America you have maybe better economic opportunity. There's a trade-off, opportunity, quality of life, all these kind of things. I think there is a place that one can run. I think you can choose where you want to be, the battles you wish to fight. Do you want to remain in New York City under communist Mamdani, Islamo-communist? Do you want to stay in Florida where the unaffordability is pushing you out and making life harder and reducing your quality of life, even as maybe things are getting better for some people around you? Do you want to uproot yourself, go to a different city? I mean, the history of America is people leaving from Europe to go to America to build and settle, and hardship. build that country from nothing. And then, do you wish to continue on that tradition, moving west and continuing to build and settle and homestead? Or, there's not much to do. You got to now buy the land, which is being inflated, and it becomes very difficult. But at least there's some familiarity there. At least you may identify, this is my nation. I don't want to go anywhere else. It's very difficult, especially the language barrier. There may be somewhere you can run to. You may be able to say, put down a flag, say, you know what, I have a nice feeling about this country. And I think that the politics, the society, the work culture, all of these things really do need to be taken into account, because they really do matter. So nomad capitalist, the perception, what he was trying to sell, just get another passport, just go, have all these options. I don't agree with that. I don't think it's feasible as everything's so interconnected and everything's going down the toilet. But I do think it's important to take some lessons from that, which is you need to have some kind of escape plan, even if it's just, if I wasn't where I am in my city, where could I go? And when you're traveling, make sure you think like, maybe that I'm not talking about necessarily internationally, travel around the country, around where you live, around the regions. Again, maybe you're very happy where you are, but maybe things go to crap. Maybe things get bad quickly and you have to have a way out. I think it's important that you have an idea of somewhere that you could run to, especially if you're going to consider kind of the virtues and benefits of things beyond just where is the best economic opportunity. And maybe you say, where I am right now is not the best economic opportunity, and that's what I'm focused on. Maybe you want to think about moving somewhere else. And again, maybe I'm from London, where you might get higher salaries, but the cost of living is astronomical. It does not make sense to go and do it. And there's a lot of people in this country. I speak to drivers around. They say, oh, the ones that speak English quite well. Oh, I lived and worked in London for a few years. It was terrible. I wouldn't do it again.
Same here. I had people who worked in New York. When I flew back in November of last year, I think it was November last year. You've been here. I've been here a year. So like, he was like, I was working in New York City, and I came back, I guess during COVID, because of the situation with the layoffs and the shutdowns. A lot of Georgians came back actually. So I mean, I was like, I'm coming here because I think there's just more opportunity than America right now, and I'm used to the area, and I got family ties here now, so why not? And I could go back to America anytime I want, so it's not a big deal. I just right now it's just best to just chill out here. But one of the things, like Andrew Henson is his name, that he's the nomad capitalist. He's actually got an office here in Tbilisi. I haven't tried reaching out to him at all yet. I know he's on LinkedIn. I would like to get him on the podcast. He would come on, but I think that's kind of the whole thing that he's pushing is a little bit of a grift. Not completely, but he does give some good information. And a lot of this information, I think, is common sense. You can kind of figure it out on your own. If you really want to ask people, just ask people like you or I that have actually just pretty much are expats that I've emigrated, so I'm not really an expat anymore. I'm completely emigrated, and
I'm a stateless refugee.
Basically, yeah. So like, there's one quote that I really do like that he does mention. He usually mentions it in just about every podcast that he does. Go where you're treated best, and I totally agree with that. And I that's why I'm here. I go where I'm treated best, and right, like Georgia's like one of the best places I've been treated. For the most part. There's some stuff, like I talk about from time to time in the Telegram group. Link is in the description for both Liberty Rising group as well as the Consolidated Legacy group. It's the Liberty Rising group, right? I said that right. And then the Consolidated Legacy group. Those links are in the description. If you guys want to talk to us on Telegram, we're there, and we comment and post out there as well. So we're there daily, basically checking and communicating with our followers. But yeah, more or less like, just go where you're treated best. I totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I can't say anything else. I mean, it's definitely like what I predicted, what you've predicted and talked about as well. We everybody within the within our our group has pretty much talked about, this is what's going on. We called it. I gave a timeline. I mean, we got some very smart people in our little our little social group. So I mean, we know what we're doing. We know what we're talking about. And I work in academia, and I work with a university that's affiliated with some very top universities in Europe. So it's not like, I'm just a no name guy in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't, just BSing. I mean, like I've got the quantitative and qualitative and the experience to pretty much tell you guys what's going on. That being said, definitely join Adam's locals if you can. Help throw him some shekels. Help his operation, if you like his content. And same with my locals as well. If you're on Rumble, you can click the join button. I don't know if you're on Rumble as well.
Not really.
Yeah, no, you're not really posting yet. But on Rumble, you guys can click the join. It'll take you right to the locals. I think it's $4 a month. It's really nothing. I mean, it's like a cup of coffee. One cup of coffee a month. You can just basically just not have to drink the goy slop. And like I said, if you use Rumble 3, I'll give you $3 off first month. You can try it out for $1 and see how you like it. My book's on there that I'm working on. I did the first draft of the publication and still working on it. Hopefully it will get published by like a named publisher once it's ready for publication. And then like I said, I'll see if I can get you guys an actual signed hard copy for those that follow. For obviously for a year or so, or stays, support my content, so to speak. I don't really care for like the CensorTube or Rumble or any stuff like that. Like, I don't think I'm monetized on Rumble. I'm not monetized on YouTube. I need 500 followers for that, but I don't even care if I'm monetized here. Main thing is just go to local, sign up. That'd be the best way to support me. And same thing with Adam. Yeah, that being said, like and subscribe. Do definitely make comment, man. If you watch this video and you like it, make some comments. Give it a thumbs up. Share it with people if you like our content. I mean, it's not like, like I said, I'm doing this as just something extra as opposed, to my academic teaching. A lot of my students actually do follow the podcast and watch it, and they do share it. So I use this as a supplemental teaching tool for academia. So, I mean, you guys definitely are getting some good content here. And that being said, I don't know what else to say. Final conclusion is basically just this, like Andrew Henson says, nomadic capitalists, go where you treat it best. Adam's talking about trade-offs, positives, negatives, do a list of what you find that a benefit and a trade-off. And if the benefit outweighs the trade-off, then there you go. And the main thing is just travel. Just if you can, just try to travel, communicate with friends. And it's best to have a friend group or a family member or somebody that's in a country that they let you know what the situation is, that you trust, like that they're like, hey, this is this. I can help get you set up and that sort of thing. Not just go find some random guy on the internet and just say, hey, let's go hang out and good luck. No, I mean, like, it's best if you like have a friend group and people that are traveling and like they're working overseas, because they usually get you in touch with locals and maybe even try to get you a job and a cheap place to stay and give you the ropes and stuff. So if you guys need that, like I said, you can also contact me on the Gonzalez Legacy, and I can help get you set up here if you're really interested in coming. I do teach at university. If you guys are interested in studying at university, you can contact me with that as well, and I can try to hook you up with like scholarship or whatever. If you're interested in that, you can just reach out to me. It's all their legacy or in the locals, and I can talk to you about that as well if you want to study under me. I don't know what else to say, man. I'm just keep battling.
I'll close it off. You can't outrun this. Not the economy, not the surveillance, not the cultural decay, not the extraction. Decline isn't regional, it's global. Every country is dealing with the same pressures, incentives, elite interests. Some collapse fast, some slow, but the collapse is the trajectory everywhere. Because you can't outrun, you have to position. So pick the place where the decline hurts the least, where the government interferes the least, and somewhere you can build something, anything, without being crushed by the system. There is no perfect safe haven, just a strategy. Navigate it well. There really is nowhere else left to run. That's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of clarity. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Take care, guys.